In the history of wealth and civilization, there have been several pivotal moments that shaped the world as we know it today. The rise of empires, the birth of industries, and the creation of technological revolutions all contributed to the creation of immense fortunes. But the first major turning point in the history of great wealth, a moment that most people do not expect, was not a sudden burst of wealth from a single discovery or invention. Instead, it was the gradual shift in human society from an agrarian, resource-based economy to one that focused on trade, innovation, and the establishment of global markets. At the heart of this transformation lies one of the most overlooked aspects of wealth creation: the invention and expansion of trade. Before the rise of complex trade systems, wealth was typically tied to tangible, physical resources like land, crops, and raw materials. A person's wealth was often limited by the land they owned or the goods they produced. The greater the land or resources, the greater the wealth. But this model began to shift when human societies discovered that wealth could be expanded through the exchange of goods, services, and, most importantly, information. The first turning point occurred during the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, where trade routes began to form across regions. These early trade networks allowed goods like spices, precious metals, and textiles to flow across vast distances. It wasn't just about exchanging material goods. The exchange of knowledge and ideas also became a critical factor in the accumulation of wealth. The ability to learn new technologies, farming methods, or even economic systems allowed societies to improve their productivity and efficiency. As trade routes expanded and societies became more connected, wealth began to take on a new form. It was no longer confined to the land or the raw materials within a region, but could be created and multiplied through the interaction between different cultures and economies. However, this first turning point in the history of great wealth did not come without challenges. The early trade routes were often dangerous, with thieves, wars, and natural obstacles hindering the free flow of goods. The concept of wealth was still mostly understood through the lens of tangible assets, such as gold and silver. The people who controlled these precious metals were often the ones seen as the wealthiest, and this mindset persisted for centuries. But as trade networks grew and the exchange of goods and ideas became more sophisticated, people began to realize that wealth could be created without the need for large quantities of physical assets.
This development created the foundation for modern financial systems, where money could be borrowed, invested, and grown, allowing for the creation of even greater wealth. The next major turning point came during the Renaissance, a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing. As Europe emerged from the medieval period, new ideas in science, art, and philosophy began to reshape the world. During this time, individuals such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Galileo made groundbreaking discoveries that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. These innovations did not just change the world in terms of science and culture, but also in terms of economics and wealth creation. One of the most significant innovations of the Renaissance was the development of the stock market. The idea that a company could be owned by a collection of individuals who shared in its profits was revolutionary. The creation of joint stock companies allowed entrepreneurs to raise large sums of money to fund massive ventures, such as the exploration of new lands or the establishment of trade routes to the East. The Dutch East India Company, for example, became the world's first multinational corporation and was one of the first companies to sell stock to the public. This development would lay the groundwork for the global economy we know today, where the creation of wealth is no longer tied to a specific landmass or physical resource, but to the ability to control and innovate within global markets. The Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries was another monumental turning point in the history of wealth. The rise of factories, mass production, and mechanized agriculture fundamentally changed the way people lived and worked. For the first time in history, the production of goods could be scaled up on an unprecedented level. This allowed for the accumulation of vast wealth by those who controlled the factories and the means of production. The Industrial Revolution led to the rise of the wealthy industrialists and entrepreneurs who accumulated fortunes that were once unimaginable in scope. But even as the wealth gap grew, something else was happening in the background. The rise of education, innovation, and entrepreneurship meant that wealth was no longer concentrated solely in the hands of the few. People from all walks of life began to realize that they could create wealth through their own ideas and ingenuity. The emergence of the middle class and the rise of individual entrepreneurship marked another turning point in the history of great wealth. While the factory owners and industrialists controlled the largest fortunes, smaller business owners, inventors, and entrepreneurs started to accumulate wealth through their own means.
As we move into the 20th and 21st centuries, the definition of wealth has continued to evolve. The digital revolution has ushered in a new age of wealth creation, one that is increasingly intangible. Wealth is no longer just about owning land, factories, or raw materials. It is about controlling information, technology, and ideas. The rise of the tech industry has created some of the wealthiest individuals in history, from Silicon Valley entrepreneurs to digital nomads who make their fortunes online. The modern economy is built on the creation of value through innovation, rather than the extraction of value from physical assets. The first turning point in the history of great wealth, then, was not a single discovery or event, but the gradual transformation of human society from one based on physical resources to one based on trade, innovation, and knowledge. While most people still think of wealth in terms of tangible assets, the true wealth of the modern world lies in the ability to connect, create, and innovate. The real turning point was not the discovery of gold or oil, but the realization that wealth could be built through the exchange of ideas, the sharing of knowledge, and the development of new technologies. In the end, the most significant aspect of wealth creation in the modern world is the ability to adapt and innovate. The first turning point in the history of great wealth was just the beginning of a process that continues to unfold today. As the world becomes more interconnected, as technology continues to evolve, and as new opportunities arise, the ways in which we create wealth will continue to change. What remains constant, however, is that the most significant opportunities for wealth creation often come in the most unexpected forms, and those who are able to recognize and seize these opportunities will be the ones to shape the future of wealth.